Journalist Calvin Dack now joins me to discuss the U.S. election. Good to have you join us, Calvin Dack. When you look at this issue raised by Trump, especially with a statement made by Michael Bloomberg, there's also the issue of the stop and frisk. But that hasn't stopped his rating. When you look at the polls, in January, he was 7% among Democratic top choice among Democratic African voters, African American voters, and now when you look at it, he's now about 27%, I guess, 22% rather. So it looks like all of the arguments really isn't hurting his campaign. Now that's Michael Bloomberg.
Well, let me share something that I think might be a little bit interesting from a U.S. perspective. I'm here in Washington, D.C., but last week I was visiting family where I'm from in North Carolina, one of the states where Michael Bloomberg has put in millions of dollars in television ads. And I can tell you that the ads are very good, and that every time I turned on the television, I saw one. And just to give you the statistics, the rate of ads that he's posting in states like my home state, it would be that one person within 1 week would see 24 commercials from Mike Bloomberg. So that just shows you how much he's saturating the market. But then the other issue is this. Obviously, there are African Americans and Democrats that don't want President Trump reelected. But if Mike Bloomberg is the choice, that's going to be a hard one, because as the clips you played, he had one of the most divisive racial policing policies ever. And he talks, it's not like this was in the 70s. This was 5 years ago, and this is a man in his 70s. And so it's really hard to buy the fact that he only now, after a lifetime of bragging and boasting about this policy, is sorry for it. So I think that needs to be considered. One other thing is President Trump, of course, was criticizing it. His campaign was criticizing it. They were calling Bloomberg a racist for it. I would like to note that President Trump has said the one thing that Mike Bloomberg did that he did like was the stop and frisk. So that's hypocrisy on the Trump administration side as well.
All right, let's look at the Iowa caucuses and that of New Hampshire. What these caucuses are supposed to do is to wield out candidates. We've seen Andrew Yang drop out quite all right, but we've seen it was Buttigieg who won Iowa, and then we saw what's his name now, Sanders winning New Hampshire. We're seeing candidates win one after the other. What does this do for a new entrant like Michael Bloomberg? What does this mean for him, for his strategy?
Well, I think Michael Bloomberg's strategy is going to be completely different, because we've never had a presidential candidate who isn't asking for money, who is funding his complete campaign. Donald Trump likes to say that he's a billionaire in Michael Bloomberg's class, but he's not. He didn't spend his money running in the election. In fact, he took donations of $10, $20, $40 from his followers like everybody else. So Bloomberg's a bit different in that he can choose to go where he wants to because of the money. And just to let you know how important money is in this issue, Amy Klobuchar, for example, who I believe in New Hampshire came in third or fourth, in one night she raised $2.5 million just because of the boost that third or fourth place showing gave her. So while Iowa and New Hampshire are very non-diverse, they're very white, they're very small, there is momentum that is gained by people who do well in those states because they are the first.
All right, you mentioned Iowa and New Hampshire not being, in terms of diversity, not really having a lot of minorities in those states. Does Iowa and New Hampshire mean anything to Joe Biden, or he's just waiting to get to South Carolina?
Well, I believe that it's definitely a warning sign for the Biden campaign that he couldn't not just win in Iowa and New Hampshire, but couldn't even really place in the top three. And because he's very popular, Joe Biden, with the African American community, he is depending on South Carolina. Interestingly, there would be a presidential debate right before the primary in Charleston, South Carolina. I'll be there, so we'll definitely have to talk. But Joe Biden is depending on South Carolina, because if he can show that a Democratic primary where 60% of the Democrats in the state of South Carolina are African American, if he can show that he has their support, then it will mitigate a little bit of the loss that he had in the whitest states that we have. Now, if he doesn't come out with a big victory in South Carolina or in Nevada, which happens right before with the huge Latino population, then he's going to have to reconsider what exactly his chances are.
We're seeing candidates in the Democratic Party who are extreme to the left and those who are at the center. In your own opinion, what is the best way to beat Donald Trump, from the left or the center?
I think the best way to beat Donald Trump is not going to be from the left or the center, because Donald Trump is going to paint whatever Democrat comes out of this, be it Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren. He's going to say they're socialist. He's been saying it already. I think we're going to have someone that can go toe to toe with him in a debate, who can take his sometimes childish criticisms and his misrepresentation of the facts and really make the case for the American people that they should be president. There's a lot of issues that Mike Bloomberg will have to get over before he can get to that space, but I think he's someone that can do that. Also, Joe Biden could do that as well, and possibly Bernie Sanders. You just get to the point where Bernie Sanders is definitely towards the left side of the Democratic Party, and we're not exactly sure if folks in the middle of the country, if they're going to go that far left. But this is definitely going to be an election about personalities, Donald Trump, and to be determined on the Democratic side.
Global Affairs analyst Calvin Dack, many thanks for your time.